All right, let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about what is, without a doubt, one of the most explosive books of the 20th century. I'm talking about Frantz Fanon's 1952 masterpiece, Black Skin, White Masks. Now, what makes this book so powerful? Well, it's this incredible psychoanalytic deep dive into the mind of someone living under colonial rule, and it was written by a man who actually lived it. You know, Fanon wrote things decades ago that feel like they could have been written this morning. Take this quote. "We revolt simply because, for many reasons, we can no longer breathe." I mean, wow. In just the last few years, those exact words have become a rallying cry for movements like Black Lives Matter, showing up on signs and in protests all across the globe. So this really brings us to the central question we're trying to unpack here. How is it that the words of a psychiatrist writing way back in the 1950s can feel so raw, so urgent today? Well, to get to the bottom of that, you really have to understand the man behind the ideas. So, Section 1, the man behind the mask. Let's get into it. Who was Frantz Fanon? Okay, so Fanon's life was, well, it was short, but it was incredibly packed. I mean, just look at this. He's born in the French colony of Martinique. Then he joins the Free French Army to go fight the Nazis in World War II. After that, he's off to France to study medicine and psychiatry. And this is what gets me. He publishes Black Skin, White Masks when he's only 26 years old. Just incredible. Then he goes all in, resigning his job in Algeria to join the anti-colonial revolution there. And then he tragically dies of leukemia at just 36. It's like a whole lifetime of revolutionary thinking squeezed into about a decade.
So what was the spark for all this? What really set him on this path? Well, you have to picture it. Here he is, fighting for France, for the ideals of liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, fraternity. But he's hit with this brutal reality. That promise didn't apply to him. The racism he faced in the army completely shattered his belief that these were universal values. And that disillusionment, that's what lit the fire for his entire life's work analyzing what it means to live under colonial rule.
All right, so that's the man. Now let's get into the ideas. We're moving on to his core analysis, the psychology of colonialism. And honestly, this is where we get to the truly groundbreaking, really challenging stuff in Black Skin, White Masks. So one of Fanon's first huge ideas is this concept he calls sociogenesis. What does that mean? Well, he basically says, look, when we see mental illness in people who are colonized, it's not just some personal, individual problem. It's not a character flaw. No. He argued it is a direct product, a symptom of living inside a sick, oppressive society. This was huge. He was drawing a straight line from a patient's mind to the political world around them. And man, this quote from his resignation letter in 1956 just lays it all out. He's working as a psychiatrist in Algeria, and he essentially says, how can I do my job? How can I cure a patient? Only to send them back out into a society that is itself completely insane. He says the Arab person in colonial Algeria lives in a state of absolute depersonalization. For Fanon, it was simple. You can't fix the person if you don't fix the world they have to live in. Okay, and that idea leads us directly to the book's central metaphor, the one in the title, the white mask. So what is it? Fanon describes this psychological process where a colonized person starts to internalize the culture of the colonizer. They absorb their values, their language, their ideals, until it leads to this deep-seated desire to be white. It's about rejecting your own identity, your own self, all in an attempt to be accepted by the dominant culture. And this wasn't just some abstract theory for him. He saw it happening all around him back home in Martinique. He's talking about the way people believed that if you got rich enough, you were basically white. He points to the intense social pressure on women of color to marry white men, to whiten the race. And even the language itself, using perfect French as a tool to put distance between yourself and your own blackness. But of all the damaging effects of colonialism, Fanon argued the most traumatic, the most deeply wounding thing was being seen through what he called the white gaze. And listen, this is more than just someone looking at you. It's about how that look, that gaze from the dominant culture, can fundamentally alter your own sense of who you are. It's like your identity is shattered and then reassembled, but by someone else. And there's this one story he tells, a personal one, that just makes this idea so visceral. He's in France, and a little white child points at him and yells, "Look, a Negro." And Fanon describes that exact moment. He says, "My body schema, battered and fragmented, collapsed. I was an object in the midst of other objects." Think about that.
In an instant, he's no longer a man, a doctor, a person. He's just an object, a negro, a thing defined completely from the outside. He even had a name for this process: epidermalization. It's the idea that your entire identity gets sealed into your epidermis, into your skin. You are literally trapped by the color of your skin, locked into all the stereotypes that come with it. You can't escape. It's like your blackness stops being a simple fact about you and becomes, well, it becomes a cage built by the white world's perception of you. Okay, so, wow, that's a pretty heavy diagnosis of the problem, right? So what's the cure? What's the way out? That's what brings us to the next part, Fanon's ideas about the struggle for liberation and his call for a new humanism. Now, Fanon wasn't working in a vacuum. He was deep in conversation with the big philosophers of his day, especially Jean-Paul Sartre. So Sartre had this famous line about anti-Semitism: if the Jew did not exist, the anti-Semite would invent him. Fanon takes that idea and applies it to anti-black racism. He writes, the black soul is a white man's artifact. He's saying that the very concept of the Negro, with all its baggage, isn't a real thing. It's something that was constructed, invented by the white imagination. But here's the twist. Fanon also argued that those classic European philosophies just weren't enough to explain the colonial reality. Take Hegel's famous master-slave idea. In Hegel's world, two people fight, basically to the death, for recognition, and that's how they become self-aware. But Fanon's point is brutal. He says the black man in the colonies was never even considered human enough to get in the ring. He wasn't allowed to fight for recognition. Any recognition he got was just granted, handed down by the master. And because it wasn't won in a real struggle, it was meaningless. It couldn't lead to real freedom. And he puts it so starkly. The former slave needs a challenge to his humanity. He wants a conflict, a riot, but it is too late. His whole point is that real liberation, true self-consciousness, can't be a gift. It can't be handed to you. It has to be taken. It has to be won through a genuine struggle. So where do you go from there? Well, Fanon lays out a kind of path to what he calls disalienation, which is really just a way of saying how to become free, even from the parts of the oppression you've internalized. Step 1, you have to see the mask. You have to become aware that you're even wearing one. Step 2, you have to reject this false choice between either trying to assimilate and be white or retreating into some kind of essentialist, pure black identity. He saw both as traps. Step 3, and this is absolutely crucial for him, take collective action. It's not enough to fix your own head. You have to work with others to change the oppressive structures themselves. And the ultimate goal of all this? A new humanism, a way of being human that finally gets beyond these racial cages altogether. All right, let's pull all these threads together now and go back to our original question. Why Fanon still matters? Why do these ideas, written so long ago, have such a powerful grip on us today? Well, look around. Fanon's ideas give us a language, a framework for understanding the incredible psychological burden of systemic racism. His work helps explain the deep-seated anger and frustration that fuels movements like Black Lives Matter. When you hear people today calling to decolonize the curriculum in universities, that's a direct echo of Fanon's thinking. He's the one who really forged that powerful link between clinical psychology and the broader fight for social justice. Ultimately, Fanon's entire project was about refusing to be defined. Refusing to be trapped by history, by racism, by the gaze of other people. And the very last line of the book is this powerful, almost desperate prayer that sums it all up. He writes, "Oh, my body, make of me always a man who questions." And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. Fanon was striving for a world beyond race, a world where no one would ever need to wear a white mask again. Here we are, more than 70 years later, and his question has really become our question. What will it actually take to finally remove that mask for good?